everyone, it is Samantha and I hope you guys are having a lovely day today. I'm here to do a wrap-up video. I haven't done a wrap-up video in a while, so today is going to be my October and November wrap-up. So you guys will get to know about what I read and my statistics, so let's do this thing. So between October and November, I read a total of 6 books. 4 were fantasy, 1 was YA, and 1 was a classic, for a total page count of 2,700 pages, for an average page count of 87 pages per day. In terms of book type, 1 was a hardback, 3 were trade paperback, and 2 of them were flexi-bound. In terms of years published, the majority of them were published between 2000 and 2016. 1 was published in 1808, and 1 was published in 1954. It's been 2 pretty good reading months. 2 of them were 5 stars, and the rest were all 4-star reads for me. So, with that being said, let's now get into the books and what I thought of them. The first book that I finished was American Gods by Neil Gaiman. This is a pretty love-hate book for a lot of people, even true Neil Gaiman lovers, but I have to say I actually really enjoyed it. It follows our character of Shadow, who has been enlisted by the old gods to try and help wage a war against the new gods who are taking over in the United States. So you kind of figure out what Shadow's role is in that and who exactly all of these people are and what their role is in this war. I actually thought it was a really fascinating book. It was interesting to see a cultural perspective of America from an outsider's perspective, which is kind of how Neil Gaiman wrote it. I think it was definitely a little bit weird at times. Sometimes Neil Gaiman stuff kind of reads a little bit like a fever dream, but overall I really enjoyed it. I thought that he had a lot of interesting commentary to say on this book. I actually have a review that should be up soon on this book, so I'll go into more depth what I thought of it and all of my feelings on this book. But overall I really enjoyed it and ended up rating it 5 out of 5 stars. For the characters, I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars. The plot, I gave 5 stars. The writing, I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars, and the setting I gave 5 stars for an overall rating of 5 stars. Next book that I read was Magnus Chase, The Hammer of Thor. This was book 2 in the Magnus Chase series that came out in October. I actually really enjoyed this one. I think I actually ended up liking it a little bit more than the first book. I don't want to go too into it because it is the second book in a series, but suffice it to say it continues the journey of Magnus Chase, and in this one he is needing to find Thor's hammer because Thor is a ditz and lost his hammer. I also like some of the crossover we're getting between the Percy Jackson series and this one, and I just really enjoy Rick Riordan's humor. It never ceases to make me happy. It's like a good, fluffy, happy read that I really enjoyed. So overall, I ended up rating this book 4 out of 5 stars. I gave the characters 4 stars, I gave the plot 4 stars, I gave the setting 4 stars, and I gave the writing 4 stars. For an overall rating of 4 stars, it was a solid 4-star read for me, as you can see. The next book that I read is a reread for me. That is A Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. I was hoping to reread the whole trilogy before the end of the year. I'm not sure if I'll be able to make it, though I am hoping I will be able to do so. I was really happy to get into this one. I forgot just how much I missed this world and these characters and everything about this series. I love The Fellowship of the Ring. It is hands down my favorite in the trilogy because there's so many characters that I love that aren't in the movies, such as Tom Bombadil and Old Man Willow and just the Barrow Downs, that whole scene. And I just absolutely adore these books, and it's been fantastic to get back into this world. So I kept this book at the rating I've always had it at, which is 5 out of 5 stars. I love everything about this book. It's a very nostalgic read for me. I read it when I was 11 and I just haven't gotten over it since then. I love it so much. This book is bae. The next read I actually started on the last day of October but finished in November, and that was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I have a full review and discussion on this book, which I will post down below if you guys are curious to check out, but suffice it to say I was pleasantly surprised by this. I wasn't really certain as to what I was going to get when I went into it, but it was a lot different from what I was expecting, which I think everybody kind of says. The story is told both through letters as well as through a personal narration by Victor Frankenstein and his journey in creating the monster and basically how it has affected his life. But I have to say I really enjoyed this book. I think that it's definitely a look at human nature and what shapes us, how our environment shapes us, and how we treat other people and how other people treat us affects us, and also affects how we treat other people. So I think it was a very interesting look at human nature. I definitely see the monster as an allegory for humanity, definitely how we all seek love and acceptance and what happens to us when we don't get that love and acceptance. So I definitely think it was a very interesting story that had a lot of deep underlying meaning. So overall, I rated this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. I gave this plot itself 5 stars. I gave the characters 4 stars. I gave the writing 4 stars, and I gave the setting 4.5 out of 5 stars for an overall rating of 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next read that I completed was Raven's Flight by Juliet Marillier. I actually own this book, but it's on the top of my bookcase and I'm too short to reach it right now and too lazy to get a ladder. But suffice it to say, I really enjoyed this book. It is the second book in the Shadowfell trilogy. I adore this trilogy so far. Juliet Marillier is one of my favorite authors. I love her Celtic undertones to her writing. Her narration style is very lyrical and beautiful, and this book was no exception. It follows our young protagonist of Naren, who is a caller, which means that she has the ability to call the good folk, which are like the fae creatures. She has joined the rebels, and she is basically trying to bring about a time of peace in Alban and to overthrow the evil king, who is basically trying to eradicate all people who have magical abilities as well as all of the good folk. So it's basically her journey to learn how to use her ability as a caller, as well as assisting the rebels in overthrow of the king. The story itself is really, really wonderful. This book is just up there with Juliet Marillier's best work. I really enjoyed it. I was engrossed in the story. I stayed up until like 1 a.m. reading it, so I was definitely super into it. So my overall rating for this book is 4.5 out of 5 stars. I gave the characters 4 stars. I gave the plot 5 stars. I gave the writing 5 stars, and I gave the setting 4.5 out of 5 stars for an overall rating of 4.5 out of 5 stars. My last read for the month of November was a really, really enjoyable one, and that was A Palace Job by Patrick Weeks. This is a wonderful caper story. It's kind of like The Lies of Locke Lamora, but also not really. There's some elements, but it's also very different. It follows our character of Locke. Yes, she has a similar name. That's her last name. As well as her band of thieves that she puts together to break into the Spire, which is like this floating city, and she's trying to steal back something that was once hers. It has a lot of different twists and turns. It's full of a lot of humor. It's actually full of a lot more diversity than I was expecting, which was fantastic. I just found the whole thing to be really enjoyable. It was definitely a fun read. I flew through it really fast in a couple of days, and I cannot wait to continue on with this trilogy and to see what's going to happen with the rest of the characters. So if you're looking for a fun fantasy adventure that is pretty easy to get into, very accessible, a lot of humor, it's a little bit fluffy, but definitely a lot of fun, then this one is definitely for you. The only thing I didn't much care for about this book is that the writing and the descriptions were a little bit confusing. I wasn't always clear as to what was going on or who was talking, or I also wasn't really able to picture the setting of this world very well, so that was kind of something that I didn't much enjoy, but the story itself was pretty dang fun, and a lot of the dialogue was very humorous that I really enjoyed. So I ended up rating this book a grand total of 4 stars. I gave the writing 3.5 out of 5 stars. I gave the characters 4.5 out of 5 stars. I gave the setting 3.5 out of 5 stars, and I gave the plot 5 stars for an overall rating of 4 stars. Alright guys, that is it for my October-November wrap-up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I feel like I've been talking really fast, so I'm really sorry if you couldn't understand me, but I hope you guys still enjoyed the video. You'll have to let me know if you have read any of these and what you thought of them, or anything else you want to write down in the comments, feel free to do so. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a lovely day. Until next time, happy reading. Bye!